One. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Dorman Lunch and Learn. I'm your instructor, G. Trulia, for today, and we're going to basically handle a scan tool using the Throttle 3 scan tool. So we're going to be on that tool a lot. The handout doesn't have a lot in it. We're going to talk about generic OBD2, OE scan data, graphing, bidirectional control, and much more. So let's do it live. Okay. So now I'm going to go on to the scan tool here, and you're not going to see my ugly mug a lot on and off. Dorman will pop it back here. So I have the Launch 3, right in front of me, and you're going to be seeing it live like this when she switches back to the screen. Now, we are on a 2008 Subaru, and this Subaru, we're going to go in and diagnose it. Couple of things here when you go in. We do have the wireless pod connected to it. You can look at things like we want to look at readiness. So if you just wanted to do a quick check, it does it. Our old launch units and even our launch code reader is a little piece of junk that, well, not junk, it's actually a great tool. I said the word junk in a nice way. The tool itself is actually beaten to death. We've used it for so many years. I want to show you what it actually looks like. The code reader says. So look, there's a cracked screen. You can see that right there, the crack in the screen. Connector plug is pretty well beat up. I'll shut that off. We're in a real shop, so sorry about that. So you're going to hear some noise sometimes in the background. We apologize for that noise. And let's go back to the scan tool. Now, there's no such thing as a stupid question, only one you don't ask. Why would you want to go see monitors? Now, here in New York State, we're in a mission state. It's important to note that monitors, all but one on this year, 2001 and up, one monitor could be not ready. Under 2001, two monitors could be not ready. But you're not in a mission state. You're going, I don't care about that junk. Well, you do care about that junk, because when a monitor's not ready, it's like me turning away from you or covering my face like this. If Vinny out there gave me the you know what, okay, I wouldn't know he gave me that finger. And you need to look at this, and you need to record this screenshot. Why? Because you may get that Friday night surprise. Let's say you fixed an oxygen sensor because the heater went bad. And it happens on this car, has an air-fuel ratio sensor and an oxygen sensor. So that being said, if that was the case and the monitor wasn't completed, like the EVAP monitor or the catalyst monitor, well, Friday night rolls around and you want to go home, that customer is going to come in and start complaining. They didn't know their check engine light was on for the O2 sensor before until you scanned the vehicle and gave them the info. Now when the light comes back on, what are they thinking? You didn't fix their car correctly. So we want to avoid that. No matter where you are, monitors should be ready. If they're not, you need to note it. Like in this case, let's take a look at the screen. Well, we got misfire, fuel, and comprehensive component. They're all ready. But I see heated catalyst, what it doesn't have. Secondary air, that's why there's an X there. O2, you notice that O2 is in red, not ready. O2 heater is ready. EGR is not ready. Okay. Now, I don't see EVAP is not ready as well. Okay. Now, you can make a report with that. Okay. And this would be your pre-report. And you can put the odometer reading and all that good junk there, the license plate, whatever you want to put in there, right? And then when you're done, you could basically save the report. Okay. When you save the report, you then could send this thing or to the customer via your management program, I should say. I'm brain dead there. Sorry about that. And you would be all set, right? So you could hit OK, and then it comes up with all the information. I could email it to myself. I could email it to the consumer if I want. So we're going to hit OK, and it's going to tell me I'm saving the report. Now, I got a question for you. It says misfire fuel. You all know what that is. what is comprehensive component? Now, you can wear a Dorman t-shirt. You got some nice new ones. What is comprehensive component? Did you ever replace a comprehensive component? I don't know. I never heard of a part called the comprehensive component. They're parts. So if you type it in, I know we got a little bit of a delay. So the first person to come up with that will actually, and what do we, top to bottom on this one? We use a lot of different webinar type of stuff. So if you know what that is, please type it in. What is a comprehensive component? And welcome everyone. I see Ontario, Canada. I see Florida. All that good stuff. Well, good afternoon, and thank you guys for attending. So anyone know that? We're going to give it another 10 seconds. All right, since you don't know it, let's write this down. Comprehensive component is every
shorts and opens.
Electrical circuit check. Some good answers, but here's what it is. It's not that. You know your mass airflow sensor? You don't have a non-continuous monitor for that, right? You know that transmission solenoid? You don't have that non-continuous monitor. Every sensor and actuator on the vehicle is in comprehensive component. That is other than oxygen sensor heater, okay, and catalyst, evap, secondary air, EGR, VVT if it has it. All of those are in comprehensive component. So beware that if that monitor is not ready, okay, it usually is always ready, but I've seen sometimes it's not ready. You got a problem with one of those things. You're going to need to check that out. Now, you know you don't have a heated catalyst, but that may be coming down the road. The 48-volt system. If you look at some of those Dodge Hemis, Jeeps, some Fords, some pickups, some Chevy pickups, you'll see a big motor, and they're supposed to be colored blue. Well, Chrysler did not, or Ram did not color it blue. That happens to be black. But be careful, you'll see it's a big, big alternator. That's the 48-volt system. With that, they could run, if they want, a heated catalyst. What's a heated catalyst going to do? Well, you know you got open loop and closed loop. Well, to go into closed loop, you need a certain amount of temperature, right? The cat is not efficient when it's cold, so it needs to heat up. That's why we use even secondary air. So please be aware of that. Now, the other ones, evap is not ready. Secondary air is not supported. O2 not ready, and O2 is ready, and EGR not ready. So what does this mean? If we send this vehicle out right here, if we send this Subaru out to the customer, and these are not ready, we have to print this screen, like I told you. We have to make sure the consumer is aware of it, so when they come in all bent, we say, hey, you have these things not ready, you could come up with a DTC, like a P0420, okay? A P0171, a lean condition, read from the oxygen sensor, and so on, correct? So we don't want to fall into that game. So always save that information and go back to it. The other nice thing here, you can see once we went into this generic part, notice up top, DTC 0. The mill is off. The voltage is 13 something. We have a maintainer on it. Highly recommend, even a brand new car with a new battery could go dead on you within the time of this webinar. And that's, an hour. So we always put a battery maintainer on. Maybe you hear a little hum in the background. That's not my heart racing for you or anything, right? That hum is from the actual battery maintainer. The protocol, we have a CAN protocol, CAN Controller Area Network. We can be up to 500 million bits of information per second on this network, but that being said, that is not what's coming through the 16 cavity connector / OBD2. That is the computers on board speaking to each other. So now we got that out of the way. We are going to exit that. Even though it says remove the VCM, we could go into something called voltage check, which is pretty nice. We can see what our starting voltage is. And what's going to happen here, it is going to look and graph it out. So if I crank the motor over, we're going to see what the difference is. So let me go do that while you look at the graph. Make sure it's in neutral. I got to put my foot down on the clutch on this particular vehicle. And I got to get my butt in here and crank it. Now we should see some difference there. Okay, you can see the graph, and it's always better to graph than not. So I'm just going to leave the key back on. Get out of the car. Good feeling on my bad knee, by the way. Okay, but you could see there that you could do this test, clear it, print it, whatever you'd like to do. We're going to go back off that. I just wanted to show you that function. And we could look at CAN bus detection. Okay, so now this launch does a really nice job with this. It is going to tell us what pins we have. And I got a little question for you. So notice all the voltage came up. There's a 500,000 ohm resistance check on this, as you can see in the upper right-hand corner. The CAN pins are what number? 6 and 14. What one of those CAN pins is CAN high? Please write that in. CAN high. Which one of them is CAN high? Okay, and Steve Layden says, yep, BMW, I think Alpina has a heated cat. Yeah, there's a lot of BMW and Mercedes high-end cars that run with some high voltage, heated cat, so that way you could actually remove those emissions immediately. Thank you for that, Steve. Okay, so pin 6, yes, is CAN high. So that should be a higher voltage, and you can see there by looking, 2.6, the other one's 2.4. And we can see our battery voltage. Now, out of the grounds, what pin is the ground chassis pin? What pin is the chassis pin? So pin 6 was CAN high, pin 14 was CAN low, but what pin is ground? Okay, and I know there's a little lag, so I have to be patient and wait on this particular system. Okay, pin 4. Now, the rest of you that said pin 5, I want you to write this down. Pin 4 is always chassis ground. Have you been on a vehicle, like on a Chrysler O2 sensor or even late model GM, and you're using the battery as ground or the engine or whatever, and all of a sudden you see that the oxygen sensor is 2.5 volts to 3.5 volts on a Chrysler, or you're 1.7 volts, 1 volt, 700 millivolts on a GM, and you go, and something's wrong here. Yeah, you know what's wrong? You're on pin 4 chassis ground. What is the other pin that you should be on so you could read a 1 volt scale? What pin is signal ground? Signal ground. Signal ground. What pin is signal ground? And good, it looks like, people are trying. Don't worry, if you're thinking especially, you could see me, I can't see you, right? And don't worry about the other people can't see you either. So don't worry about someone going, hey, that guy's a dummy. They're a bigger dummy for thinking you're a dummy, right? We got to try. So yes, pin 5 there, excellent. Pin 5 is the actual signal ground. So what does that mean? The signal ground is raised. If this is 0 chassis ground, we may be raised above it, whether it's 700 tenths of a volt, whether it's 2.5 volts like the Chrysler setup. Why? Because when we start the vehicle up, as you've seen, what do we do with voltage? We pull it down. In order to get a very good reading, we work on a 5 volt reference. So you have 12 volts that goes into a computer, and a drop resistor makes it down to 5 volts, right? So the 5 volt circuit or sensor has to be good. In the case of the oxygen sensor, 1 volt. So if we don't have something that's called a floating ground, if we're not on pin 4 and we're on chassis ground, we may get something called interference. That's why we do that. Very good. And pin 16, obviously, is battery voltage. When we run battery voltage to pin 4, what test can you do on a vehicle, especially if this vehicle had clear flood? I will give you a Dorman shirt and hat for this one. And you got to be quick. First guy. Dorman shirt and hat. what pin would you be on, the pin number, and what test would you perform? Clear flood is basically when you hold your foot down to the floor and prevents gas from going into the engine. Okay, cuts out the fuel. And so far, okay, I know it's a delay. So far I don't see anything there, but the first person to come up with it.
Relative compression, 5 and 16.
Good, relative compression. Paul, we'll give you a shirt, put your email in there, but 5 is not correct, so someone else could still win. RC test. So who's going to come up with the right pin number? Come on, Steve Layden. You came up with some good answers. If you give me that pin number, we'll send you a shirt. Okay, well, there's a guy there. Let's give Scott Hicks. So Scott Hicks, put your email in as well. 4 and 16, chassis ground and battery. We wouldn't have to, and 16 is the battery pin. We wouldn't have to open the hood of this vehicle if it had clear flood. Now, clear flood's not on every vehicle. It is roughly on about 80-something% of the vehicles. So when you put your email in there, Doreen will be able to get it, and we will send it over to Dorman to send it out for you. Okay. So what we're doing now, we're going to get out of this, and we're going to go into diagnose. Now, the nice thing here with this launch tool is pretty damn good. Okay, and a lot of tools are doing this, but these guys do a nice job. And you can see up top, we got automotive, heavy duty, service function, motorcycle, and history. So if I went to a vehicle prior, you can see I went to the Subaru, I went to a GM, but I'm going to go back. I'm going to hit diagnose, and I'm going to hit automotive here, and hit auto detect. Auto detect. So now what it's going to do on most vehicles, okay, not going to tell you every one, but I'm going to show you a nice function that they have. You know, when you, click on me, when you pee and moan that whatever tool you're using, oh, that thing's a piece of junk. Well, you know, there's a lot of vehicles out there with a lot of data, especially when using an aftermarket tool, okay? They got to do a lot of car lines. Even the factory tools, a Subaru or a GM or whatever, Toyota, they make mistakes. So they could be a mistake in the tool. Here you're going to be able to report it. I'm going to show you that function, okay? So here it tells me it's a 2008 Subaru Impreza. That's a 2.5 motor, and always 9445. I check the last 4 digits of the VIN all the time. That is correct. Now we can do quick access, which would basically give us what you're going to see pop up here. That is certain functions, areas, area select. We're going to be in North America, right? You would collect that one. Special functions, immobilizer, advanced function. So if you went into immobilizer, still wants to know what country you're in. Advanced function. So if you had thing here like TPM ID, idle speed control, brake pad release, and not all of these are on the card. Injector code registration mode. Now, I don't believe Subaru uses that. Not impossible, but let's say we did go into that. This means before you put those injectors in, you know what you need to do? You need to take your phone and take a picture of it if it has code numbers on it, because if you put it in the vehicle and can't see it, you'll be taking everything apart. So the car cannot support this function. That is correct. So why did I do that? I knew it couldn't do it, but I wanted to show you that some of the things that you see on your tool are not going to work. So you always go for the thing that is going to work. Like, let's see if oil maintenance mode, for argument's sake. Okay? So it's going to take a little bit to communicate, may not be available on a car. Engine oil change, reset without the tool. There's the information for it. Because I'm not going to hit reset on this customer's car. It's not my car. But you can do that and go through the whole thing. So, you know, you got to have your fingers do the walking like my fingers are doing walking through this tool. Why? Because you have to know what's in it. If you don't know what your tool can do, you don't usually use those functions. You don't want to make it a glorified code reader like this thing, and this is great. We use the hell out of this thing. Look, the wire's broken, we got a tape, it still works. I mean, this thing is old as can be when launch first came out with that. So there's a lot of quick and neat stuff here. We're going to go back and we're going to go into auto detect and just take it from there. And by the way, you see the demo there? Demo means you could play with this at home or in the morning when you came in or on your lunchtime. Why? You want to see the functionality of the tool. And I'm going to show you some of that, how I graph, how I get info, okay? So right now we're connecting to it. We're reading the VIN. Always check the VIN number, okay? And again, while we're waiting, if you have any questions, put it in. So Steve has a comment, doesn't do clear flood. Well, yeah, tests don't do clear flood, but the vehicle could do clear flood. So there's no test for that. The reason why we want to do clear flood, and GM came up with that when cars used to have carburetors on them, got too hot, people used to pump the pedal. A good mechanic would tell their customer, if your car doesn't crank over when it's hot, you hold the foot all the way down, and that was your clear flood. That's why when you go over about 4.7 volts to 5 volts, the throttle position sensor, or APP, accelerator pedal position, when it reaches the voltage threshold, will prevent the injectors from actually putting fuel in the motor. That's why we call it clear flood. Otherwise, your plugs would get all wet and the vehicle wouldn't run. So here we're going to go into diagnosis. And it's going to tell you from 94 to 22, engine, transmission, all these things are here. We're going to go into the area. We're going to pick North America. And make sure all your information is correct here, which ours is. I am going to hit yes. And there's the topography. I'm not going to just show you this. So this is neat. This is like on my ISTA, the BMW factory tool, Otis, the Volkswagen tool, the Chrysler Y-Tech. They have this function, and a list like this is great. We're going to go to list first. We'll come back to that. I am going to scan the system, okay? You could do health report as well if you want that health report. I like to do system scan. It's doing generic OBD2. We're going to look at generic OBD2 because I want you to write this down. If I have a vehicle that has drivability problem, okay, drivability, what's drivability? Drivability, hesitation, running rough, okay? Or I have the U-suck light, the check engine light on, okay? I want to go there first. I do not want to go into Subaru, Porsche, Toyota. Even though the tool can do it, I want to go there first. Why? Because it is going to give me stuff like fuel trim. I understand what fuel trim is. If you're on a Porsche, can you find fuel trim? No, you may not find it on a lot of Euro cars and some Asian cars. It would be called adaptation. And an adaptation is basically fuel trim, but they don't call it that. So if you went in there, you may not know, is the command for fuel to put fuel in, which would mean it has a lean condition requesting fuel. Got a weak fuel pump. You got a voltage drop at the fuel pump. Got a clogged fuel filter. Got clogged injectors. Well, you could command all the fuel you want if mechanically we're not in good shape, meaning the filter's clogged, the pump has voltage drop going to the ground or feed side, okay? The pump is worn. You got bad injectors that are clogged up with stuff. Well, of course, it doesn't know that. It's not testing for a broken component, okay? It's testing what the system can do. Remember, in computer system, my finger is the sensor. If I touch something hot, I pull away. That electric signal, my nerve endings, comes up through my arm, goes to my brain. In the car, that could be an air-fuel ratio sensor, mass air, whatever. And then it goes to the big encyclopedia, the PCM, and it's only as good as what's programmed into it. So right now, just like my brain, you ask me to speak Russian. I can't do that. It's not programmed into my stupid head. Okay? But once something is programmed in, I could then move my hand away. That's an actuator. Okay? When you see more grams per air coming in from the mass airflow sensor and it goes to the computer. The computer says, more grams per air rather than 1 gram per liter, 2.5 grams or so, okay? Now you're at 10 grams. That means we got more airflow coming through. More airflow coming through? Oh, yes. That means I better give it more fuel. Does that make sense to everybody? Now, you can put the letter Y if that is the case. If not, maybe I'll try to explain it a different way. So now we went down this whole list. And I want to talk about the list. So we have here tranny not, I already reported this, it is not equipped. How could it not be equipped with a transmission? So all of these, it's not equipped. We're going to go to the equipped ones. And there's a lot of different things that it could be on the vehicle, including nowadays battery energy control system. A lot of times that's battery registration. So now you see where it says scanned, EOBD2? Now I didn't have to go into generic, but I wanted to show you. That's what I really like. Launch did a very, very good job here, okay, in making the stuff all available. Because if you miss generic OBD2, you may just miss a problem. Well, what do you mean about that problem, G? Well, when I'm in the manufacturer end, doesn't matter what brand we're on, here, Subaru, I may not see a problem like a pending code. I may not see mode 6 or mode 10. Okay, 0A mode 10. Now this vehicle is not going to have mode 10. It'll have mode 6. Well, gee, why doesn't it have 0A mode 10? If that's what you're thinking, it has to be a 2010 and up vehicle. Now we have one of those parts stores down the street. They do a free scan and they do a definitely good erase. Because they're going to sell the guy a bunch of parts and they're going to erase all the DTCs. When they erase the DTCs and it's under a model 2010, I don't know what they did. It'd be like throwing Clorox on a crime scene. Everything is gone. Not even that great detective Columbo. You watch Columbo? Just one more thing? Well, some of you guys are too young for that, but you can see it on my TV or some of those other channels that are there. Go check Columbo out. You got to get all the facts. But if someone cleans everything up, like clears the code, and it's below 2010, I can't find out. 2010 and up, yep. Go into 0A mode 10, which we'll take a look at. It's going to show us no data. We see the mill status is off, readiness, complete, not complete. You would definitely want to hit OK here, and let's get into the modes. Mode 1, I am readiness state, so you can do DTCs cleared after. Let's see what it pops up. It tells you what's ready or not ready. Okay. Same thing we had seen before. You can, save that info. Let's look at mode 2, freeze frame. Very, very important. No freeze frame. Always check it. I have worked on vehicles that freeze frame was there, but there was no code. You know what happens? After 40 warm-ups or 3 good setups, you may see that the light goes out, okay? The light could go out in a certain amount of trips depending on the car. In 40, it's going to clean it out all the way, but maybe you're on 39, okay? So you're going to see some freeze frame data and may give you a clue that the calculated load of the vehicle in generic OBD2 was at 40-something percent. The RPMs were maybe 2,000. The speed was maybe 40 miles an hour, and you could see something maybe dropped out. Maybe it's an APP, accelerated pedal position, which is rare. Maybe it is an air-fuel ratio like this car has. Something that you could see in that data, okay? Number 4, you don't want to do this. Keep your fingers away from it until you record and save all screens, okay? Mode 8. Now, mode 8 is bidirectional control. It says it's not on this vehicle. Now, they added this about 2008 to 2010, mostly 2010 and up. It is the ability to close the vent solenoid. Not all manufacturers followed that ruling, and some scan tools just didn't do it either. So just be aware of that. Let's look at live data, mode 1. Now, mode 1, we do this. We're going to select all. Now, what do you know about selecting all? if I start this vehicle up and race it up, I'm going to notice that RPM is going to be slow. You're going to see there the throttle position. Look at all these PIDs. 47 generic PIDs on this car. And there's my fuel trim. I need to know that stuff. So I'm going to hit OK. And now you see some numbers. So let's look at absolute throttle. I'm going to graph absolute throttle. So the key's on. I don't have to start it up. But watch what happens when I hit the throttle pedal. Do you see that? So I could see if I held it down on the floor, should be a straight line up top. The power of graphing rather than you just looking at numbers. And most of you is aware of this. Okay? I'm going to say the majority are. So we got all this information here, calculated load. Got a question. You could win a t-shirt. What is the calculated load at wide open throttle, the number you need to see if you're getting enough air, called basically a poor man's VE test, volumetric efficiency. So I could graph that out, and if I did race this car up, I'd want to go pedal to the metal in a car length, and I want to see what number. I'm going to look at the thing here. What number? 80%. Okay. Good. Sergio, over 90%. And that's at sea level. So Sergio, put your email in. You won a Dorman t-shirt. Okay. Very good. And don't worry if you're wrong. I see a different, I'm not going to mention the guy's name. Don't worry if you're wrong. Big deal, right? It's like when we're young, well, even when we're old, like me. You're going to learn something new every day. We're all going to make mistakes. Don't worry about it. Okay. So let's get out of that. So there's all our generic stuff there. And right now, if I started it up and I look at RPM, where did I see it? Engine RPM. I'm going to graph it. I want you to look at the screen, listen to the car's RPM, and remember, we have 40-something PIDs selected. 42, I think the number was, right? Oh. Let me start this thing up. Got to move our scan tool out of the way. It's a clutch vehicle. Now there's some lag. If I only selected one PID, it'd be a lot better. Now, Launch has done an exceptional job here, because when I do that, there's a little delay, but they have cleared it up to pick out the one that I am graphing. Now, what I'm going to do is I am going to take the graphing off so you can see multiple PIDs, because there is very little, if any, delay here, right? So let's go back, and I want you to look at the RPM number, the lambda number. Let's take a look at those. Or maybe what we'll do, it'll be easier. Let's graph that. Let's graph this. Well, in the sake of time, just let's look at these different numbers. So when you got everything coming in, look at that 9-something number. You notice it went to 2,000 afterwards? Write this down. There's always a lag. There is always a lag when you select all the PIDs. So what you want to do is we can go back, and if I wanted to see certain things, I'm going to unselect, okay? And if I wanted to see the throttle, I wanted to see those 3 throttles, calculated load, so I can see if the engine is good. By the way, barometric pressure, very important always to look at, and engine RPM. I do not, very important to write this down, I do not want to go over 6 PIDs. If I go over 6 PIDs, here's how scan tools operate. Remember, even though this is a CAN system, control area network, there is 500 million bits of information per second on the data bus. Okay, the data bus. It doesn't mean that the scan tool is getting that info. So you have all this information that's going to come in like this. It has to go down the list before it gets back up there, for the example, get back down to RPM. Any questions on that? I'll take a look here. Don't see anything, and thank you for putting your email in there. Okay, so now we've seen that. Now we got mode 3, 7, and mode 10. There's no faults, but it's a little misleading here. This does not have mode 10. Okay, does not have mode 10. Test results mode 6. Really good to know. And look at the great job that they did here. Well, what do you mean, G, great job? It's decoded for me. So if I want to see EGR, okay, there's all my test IDs. Mode 6 has SID, component ID, MID, monitor ID, and TID, test ID. Here they're giving me all that information so I could see if any of them failed. Think of mode 6 like a goalpost. So a goalpost like this, you can't be out on that end. You can't be out past that end. You got to be somewhere in between the goalposts. Very important thing to look at. And again, we're doing this all from the scan tool by going under the manufacturer. Whether this was a Subaru or a other vehicle, it wouldn't matter. So some good information there. Now mode 9, very important. I want to check that VIN number out. Why do I want to check the VIN number out? Well, I'm going to give you a quick story. I didn't write the article yet in Motor Age magazine. But we had a vehicle come in. It was a Ford Explorer. And we could not find a computer for it anywhere. Not even at the dealer, not at any parts store, and not at autopcms.com. AUTOPCMs.com. The reason why I'm spelling it out for you, it's a great place when you can't get a computer. Well, they didn't have any. So Bill made his fingers do the walking on Google. And what did he come up with? Some company we never heard of, we never did business with. They happen to have the computer. Middle of nowhere, somewhere in the middle of the country or whatever. But that's okay, doesn't matter. They said, give us the VIN number. So we said, hey, we have the Ford IDS. We don't need it. We can program it. No, give us the VIN number. We give them the VIN number. We get it. Now, mind you, we only had a check engine light on the car, okay, or on that Explorer. And we had one code. It was an evap solenoid that burnt out the driver in the computer is why it was being replaced. We get it. We put it in. It looks like an early Christmas. Yes, you know when you have all your Christmas lights with different colors? The dash was lit up with different colors, and we had a bunch of codes. Go to look, mode 9 had a few wrong numbers, like the 8th digit, the 10th digit, okay? You put a couple of wrong digits in there. They must have misunderstood Bill and typed it in, so all we did was go in and introduce the correct VIN, and wow, we're like heroes now. Now there was no check engine light on. So it's important now for inspection programs like our friend here, Steve Layden out of Georgia. They look at VINs. They look at, in every inspection program, like here in New York, we look at PID count, we look at mode 6 info. You know, there's a lot of people that try to cheat. New algorithms, thank God, prevent people from doing that. And here in New York, we're going to a new inspection program. We ordered our machine here in the shop probably 4 or 5 months ago. We were supposed to be beta testing it in August. We still haven't gotten it yet, but that's a whole other ballgame. Anyway, so any questions on what we did here? It's pretty easy to look at. You can look at calibration numbers. Is it the latest calibration that's in there? We hit the back. When you hit the wrong key, it kind of tells you, which is nice. So there's all our modes of OBD2. Now let's look at the topography. When you look at it here, green is normal, red is abnormal, blue is scanned, and the gray is not equipped. So you can see we got scanned, these modules all scanned, and there's no code in them. This is great eye candy that I talked about before. Why? Because our eyes can catch something right away. You may not go there. If I thought CAN had a problem and I go into the CAN system, it's going to give me information, okay? It's going to say, read fault codes. It says CAN, HS bus, off, fault, location, COM line, ECM, and ABS unit failure. So you can look at that 102. You can do code assist. There's no record found, code search. And there's some stuff. Look at that, pulls up. Subaru DTC, undefined. You go right in there, and look at this. They got a bulletin right there. It says you can have open or power source. This becomes very, very powerful, my friends. Super powerful. Now, I'm not saying everything you find on Google or YouTube is 100%, but doesn't it help us out quite a bit? Doesn't it put us in the right ballpark? You know, like that guy, Aaron Judge, going for number 61, the Ty Maris, okay, the great Yankees. Now, you may hate us Yankee fans, but all good stuff there, right? So here we're in the right ballpark, and we can get out of that. We can back out here, and we could go into immobilizer if we wanted to see what the immobilizer stuff is. And by the way, these guys do some great stuff here. It tells you if it's a smart key, a mechanical key. With that, the year, is it a plug-in hybrid? You would have to pick the particular type and model. We're just going to go back because we're not going to do that. I just want to show you the power. Advanced functions. So now you can go in and do those bidirectional controls. We looked at that before. You want to customize something. So let's say you want to go in and you want to make, you know, you can type in G stuff there, and you want to go through and look at something and save something, you can do it. So there are many things that you can do. And if we go down the list here, and we're going to go to the engine controller. So you see, here's OBD2. Let's go into engine. So now you're into the ECM, PCM, the manufacturer side of the tool, and it's doing a communication. And it is a 2.5. First, you always go read fault codes. Temporary diagnostic codes. There's no codes. Hit back. Memorize diagnostic codes. Nothing. We go back again. We could clear codes, active test. So you can do immobilizer, fuel pump, idle control, injector. Let's see if you could hear the fuel pump. And I'm going to execute. Notice it said the fuel pump on. You can't hear it. Let's say stopped. Off. So why would you want to do this? Well, maybe you want to check the volume of fuel coming out. Bidirectional is allowing you to do a couple of things. To turn a component on. But what else am I doing? I am checking to see if I am bypassing a sensor, an input per se, okay? An input to the computer. If I can command it from here and let that actuator come on, a fuel injector, a fuel pump, headlights, what's that telling me? The computer to the component has the ability to turn it on, meaning the wires and that component are good. If I just had a fan component, I could put the fan on, and guess what? That would be good, telling me I'm not ordering a fan, correct? That is the important thing of bidirectional control. Now, when you want to do other functions that are not in the tool, well, then you need to pull up a wiring diagram. And by the way, you can get to All Data, ProDemand, Identifix, Motologic, Google, YouTube, all from this tube. All from this tool, not tube. The Launch Throttle 3. So I've been playing with this a little bit, and I can't tell you how many launch tools we have over the years. They're great. We use them. There's other tools out there as well, but these guys were one of the first out there, the old green screen I had, and they do a damn good job. Special functions. So you can do enter the VIN, okay? You can do a code cancel, a throttle, manual matching, okay? System operation code check. You can look at certain things like EGR valve control. Start the engine up, you follow it. We're not going to do that for the sake of time. If you went into enter the VIN, you could type the VIN in there if the VIN was wrong. You don't need the factory tool. These are great functions here. Dealer check procedure, perform dealer check mode. We're not going to do that either, but it would go through a bunch of stuff. So those are some of the things you can do there besides. Let's look at the data stream here. 90 different PIDs in one computer. And what you look at here, you see airflow sensor voltage. You're going to see air fuel sensor current. Okay, I'm going to select them all, and we're going to take a peek at stuff here. Does anyone know what the voltage should be to the air fuel ratio sensor on a Subaru? Anyone know that? I'm going to look at some questions here. Oh, we got a Met fan there. Okay, Julio. I like the Mets to win too. They're a New York team. It's okay. We got some good stuff there. Okay, so what is that? You can see we got resistance in ohms. What would be the sensor voltage with the vehicle running? So, okay. 3.3, well, that would be good, Bill, if it was a Toyota. And that is good. You know, it's not a 1-volt system like you have on oxygen sensors, right? So 3.3 that Bill put in, and thank you, Bill, for trying to answer, that's what it'd be. But a Honda would be 2.8 volts, okay? You get a Nissan, 1.4 volts. And you're not going to find some of this stuff, by the way, in manuals, except Toyota is the one that puts that information in the 3.3. So looking down the list here, I'll give you that answer in a minute. Someone's pretty close there. Tom, 2.5. Write down 2.4 volts. But Tom, put your email in for the hell of it. We'll give you a T-shirt. You were close enough for government work. Now, let's talk about this. If the number, like Tom put 2.5 and 2.4 is the number, is 2.5 rich or lean? Now, on oxygen sensors, the higher the voltage meant it's rich, right? The lower it was lean. I want you to write this down. It is the reverse when it comes to air-fuel ratio sensor, no matter what car line. If that 3.3 that was put out there before on a Toyota, if you had 3.7, you would be leaner. On 2.4, you did 2.5, it'd be lean, okay? So you could see all these different bits of information here. And by the way, you see when I go through the screen and it takes sometimes time to fill in like that right there? You see that delay? That's not because the tool is delaying. That is the ability of the OBD2 port to come out. Now, when you get to FlexRay, you get to a lot of these vehicles that use an Ethernet cable that plugs in like to your back of your computer. The OBD2 port is not fast enough to data output all that information so quick. So when I go like this, you see that blank, and then it fills in? You see those seconds of information until you fill the whole list up? I would not want to look at the whole list, okay? If we did do a report, you can put it all here, you can save it all, and when you do this, you can put a repair order number, all that good junk, and then you pull this up, and you can send this whole report with all that information to the vehicle. You can share it by going on there using your Drive. You can use Google Drive, email. We use something called Dropbox here, so you can put Dropbox on there. Whatever you'd like, okay? So we're going to get out of that, but that's something that you should do. You can compare samples. Sample data is used to compare the vehicle data stream reference values to the collected stuff. So if you hit that, Please select the state. 0 RPM. Now, you see right there the box that just came up? Standard value, 1.6 to 35.2. This is the only tool currently on the market that you can do at idle, off idle, and give you this list. You know when you see desired idle, desired this or that component, that's a specification. Look what these guys are doing. They're telling you what the air fuel percentage should be, what the current should basically be, what the resistance, and if you go down the list, battery voltage, you should have 14 to 14.6. The manifold pressure, okay, 350 to 365 mm in inches, okay. And if there's anything else here, coolant temperature. So they give you some good values. Now, your command is going to be more like that 8.19 on that stuff there for inject the pulse width. And just a whole bunch of information to put you in a ballpark. Is it all perfect information? No. But I bet when you don't know something, it is a lot more helpful than you think it is. So any questions there? Can you slow the...
In the show, the mail, there are interesting things there.
Oh, the mail, because we only have 10 minutes left, there's a lot of stuff. You can send it through Gmail. You can send it through your own email. If you got something like Outlook, you can save it to Google Drive. Google Drive does a lot of good stuff. Or you can send videos. You can take pictures with this. Got a front and back camera. Not a commercial. I just wanted to let you know what this can do. Now, if we go into ABS computer, of course, it's on there and it communicated. We could go in here and see what special functions that may have in there. So, like anything, it's going to take some time. So here you can do a sequential test of the ABS. Press the pedal fully firmly and then continue. We're going to hit no and get out of that. You can read the data stream. 13 different PIDs here. So if you wanted to do the speed sensors, I'll just do 2 of them. And we wanted to record it. We could record those and basically see what the wheel speed sensor is doing. Now, a little note here, unlike a lab scope, a lot of ABS units reporting scan data back, you may have to be over 9 miles an hour, 8, 9 miles an hour or above. So if you're running this on your lift and think you got a problem, the best thing always is to have all 4 wheels on the ground, put all 4 wheels up, let someone else drive the vehicle for safety reasons, and then you can see what's going on as far as are they matching up. So we could go back and look at all of these things here. Anything, here's chassis. Anything that the manufacturer allowed, Subarus are not the greatest car to actually see things on, okay? But here's some stuff here. See, tire 3, air pressure decreased. Tire 4. So they also have this thing here called X431 fix. Sorry, no access has expired. Serial number not bound. And I guess I would have to activate it, but they probably, so I have to call them. Certain functions like that, I probably didn't set that up correctly. I got to use my PIN card to go do that. But they got some real good information in this tool, okay? And the more you go through and look at it, the better. Special functions, if you have the transmitter ID register confirmed, you can go in there. I'm not going to do that because it could mess some stuff up. You can clear memory out. And of course, we read those fault codes. And you can read all the data stream. 14 PIDs, select all. And there is pressure warning, return pressure, not giving us an air pressure reading. So again, dependent on the vehicle that you're working on or the system. So there's a lot of stuff here. Anything, because we're coming close to an end, anything that you would like to see before we just tell you, this tool, you can go in, get it, go back, you can do health reports, you can save everything. It warns you, you can look at all the car lines that you can do, okay? And again, the history part is pretty nice. Service functions, you have this programming stuff here, update, added ECU, Bosch engine controllers. So there's certain things that they can do here that you would have to read through, okay? Vehicle coverage. And let's look at that question. Does that launch scan tool clear permanent codes? Okay, very good question. So let's talk about mode 10, 0A mode 10, permanent codes. Nothing can clear a permanent code. Not a battery disconnect, not a computer disconnect, no scan tool, not even a factory tool. Mode 10 basically leaves the code in there for an undetermined amount of time that the manufacturer who wrote that software is basically going to say, man, maybe 20 times it has to meet this parameter set. Once it does that 20 times, we will allow it to clear out, okay? So that is a good question, but there is no way around it. That is to make sure that the manufacturer or repair shop can see what was the problem. So very, very good question there, okay? And here's all the vehicle information here on that. Any other questions before we go to a couple of slides there? I like that it always tells you, don't forget the VCI. Okay, we've got a few things before we get going here. And I want to thank you for your time. We'll be back next month for another Dorman Lunch and Learn. Sometimes it's Wednesday or Thursday. I'm sorry. We try to keep it a Wednesday, but traveling, I was teaching out in Vegas, just got back. So today it's a Thursday. But we do want to talk about the TST big event. Dorman Products is one of our sponsors. Saturday, March the 18th, 2023, Terrytown, New York, a free tablet, our 20th year. So we're going to have a big after party. We're going to have a lot of vendors. Everyone who signs up gets a table seat, okay? So there's no one complaining they didn't get a table seat. Everyone gets a tablet who came in and paid, okay? You're going to get hot breakfast, hot lunch, and after the after party, hot dinner food. We have two great speakers this year. We got Keith Perkins and we got Gary Smith, and then there may be a super special guest, besides my buddy Peter Cole giving you an air condition update, keynote speaker Pete Meyer from Motor Age, but the special guy, he comes from somewhere out in the Southwest. So look for something neat there. Next Thursday night, the 29th, I will kick off our season. I say our season, TST goes from September to June live. July and August, we have roundtables like we did this year. I will be doing computer strategies and diagnostics. $40 if you're a non-member, $20 if you're a TST member. Upcoming instructors between October and June, we'll have Bernie Thompson, John Thornton, Scott Manna, Bill Fulton. That's right, Bill Fulton. And you haven't seen Bill in a while. Bill's coming back. Scott Brown, Brandon Steckler, Jeff Zide, Kenny Zanders. And at the big event again, Keith Perkins, Gary Smith, and the special surprise guest, okay? So if you have any questions, put them out there. I want to thank you as always for your time. This will be put up on the ATTS website as always with the handout. The handout in this is not much. It was really giving you a view of what you should do with your scan tool, what the launch Throttle 3 tool could actually do. Pretty powerful tool. And I have their other launch tools, but this thing is really, really nice. Also has a lab scope function. Maybe one day we'll show you that as well. If there's no questions, Dorman, we clear? I have a question for you. Before we go, was this helpful for you? If it was helpful, type the letter Y. Letter Y if you thought this was helpful. Letter N if it was not. So N if it was not, Y if it is. We hate wasting your time. Don't want to nauseate you at lunchtime. So Y if it was helpful, N if it was not. I want to say thank you from New York. See you next time. So So we'll take a peek at any comments. Yes?
The TST big event is in person, correct?
Yes, TST big event is in person. That is correct. TST is in person. There will be some online as well. We simulcast it live, okay, but you won't be there for the good food, the party. The last year, even during the pandemic cutback, over $40-something thousand of tools. Usually we give away 50,000 thanks to our generous sponsors. And again, Dorman is one of our big sponsors. So thank you, Christine. We got another question, Doreen?
Yeah. Does this scan tool work with launch accessories like the sensor box?
Ah, very good. And I've asked them to send me a sensor box. So yes, this does work with the launch sensor box, which is really good to have. Why? I could substitute a value. If I think I got a broken part, I can use the launch sensor box. The lab scope is a whole other portion that comes with this on a Throttle-free master kit, but the sensor box, a few other things are not included. So you can buy them, as far as I know, as an accessory. Any other questions before we go? Well, once again, thank you. Be safe. We'll see you next month or on one of our Dorman training classes. Don't forget to go to the Dorman training website. So dormantraining.com. You can see, like last night, we had Pete Meyer do a class, Kenny Zanders doing some classes. So go check them out, and we'll see you next time around. Thank you for your time. Take care.